Welcome, everyone. I'm Dick Deming, Medical Director of Mercy Cancer Center and the founder of Above and Beyond Cancer. Welcome to our weekly cancer education series. It's brought to you in part by a grant from the Iowa Oncology Society. Our topic tonight is a fun one. It's called Coffee, the Real Scoop.
The real scoop,
yeah. So our guest is Barb Wisnieski, a friend and a colleague and a certified registered dietitian. And we're going to talk about coffee.
Sounds great.
But before we do that, let's get to know you a little bit. I know you've been our guest before, so many people in the room here and probably those watching know you. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Where did you grow up?
I am from Western Springs, Illinois, which is a southwest suburb of Chicago. I went to Iowa State University and ended up marrying an Iowa boy and stayed in Iowa. So I've been here for 40 years. Been a dietitian for about that long as well.
So when you're in high school, how many in your high school class?
I had 1,000 people in my graduating class. In my class. Yeah.
Holy moly.
Yep.
What was your claim to fame and how do you get a claim to fame with 1,000 people in the class?
So I was a badminton player. We had a badminton team, and in our conference, every school had a badminton team. So we wore the girls' tennis outfits, and we traveled to other schools and played badminton. So I was a singles badminton player, and I was the MVP my sophomore year.
Wow. Yep. I did not know that. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we're also going to talk about like myths. So I would think like a dietitian, and I know you're a scientist, but I think like my question was going to be like, did you do home ec in high school?
Actually, I did home ec when I was in junior high school.
Junior high school.
Yes.
Okay. And did they call it home ec back
then?
They
did call it home ec back then. And I didn't like it, and I wasn't good at it.
No. So,
No.
Did you like cooking in high school or college, or would you call yourself a foodie like we would now?
I was not a foodie. So I came to nutrition in a very kind of backdoor way. Okay. I started at Iowa State as a physical therapy major and then went into athletic training. And then my parents said my junior year, you've got a lot of science credits. What are you going to do to finish up? So I looked around and I thought nutrition fit the bill. Mm-hmm. And at that point, nutrition was just kind of an up and coming science.
Right.
And now it's still considered kind of the baby science of the sciences, but it's gained more and more attention as far as its role in chronic disease. So it really was a great thing to be involved in. And I've worked in a number of different areas in nutrition. 16 years at the Cancer Center with you. We were just talking about that. And then, so it's been a great career to have as a person who loves science and as a mom too. I've been able to work in lots of different capacities.
But as opposed to coming in as a foodie, you really approached it as part of a health and wellness from physical therapy, athletic training, and nutrition more as a basis of health and wellness.
Health and wellness, yes. Yep.
Yeah. Great. So what's the training to become a registered dietitian?
So you have to get a 4-year degree in nutrition. And then after that, back in the day, 40 years ago, when I went through the program, you had to go through an internship, which was anywhere from 9 months. Mine was 9 months, and I got my internship at the VA all the way to a couple years. And then you sit for a registration test. It's a national registration test, and you have continuing education credits that you have to maintain every year. Now it's a little bit different. Dietitians now, within the last 5 years, now have to get their master's degree to be able to even sit for the test and call themselves a registered dietitian. Okay. So a higher level of education, just because the science has really boomed as well.
What was your very first job once you became a registered dietitian?
So I worked at the VA Medical Center here in town and worked with veterans for 10 years, which I loved. I also had a short stint as a diabetes educator and taught people about diabetes. And then before I came to the Cancer Center, I worked as a food service director at a Catholic school here in town, which was a great experience and learned a lot.
Yeah. And so you're overseeing, in charge of the diet and the whole menu.
The whole school lunch program. Also was the director of the wellness program there at the school. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you said, we've been together for 16 years. And what would you say, maybe describe before we get into the topic,
Sure.
the role of a dietitian in a cancer center?
It's a great question. So the majority of my time I spend working with people that are going through chemotherapy and radiation. So we talk a lot about the side effects of the particular treatment they're going through. I make recommendations for people what to eat if they're having trouble eating. A lot of people have poor appetite or taste changes, so we work with that. I also work with a lot of people who have gone through head and neck cancer treatment and have feeding tubes. So a lot of my job is working with the doctors to recommend what formula, how much to take, because a lot of times those patients can't eat by mouth for a certain period of time. So, but then the exciting part of my job is within the last 5 years, I've really worked into survivorship, which is really one of my interests, has always been one of my interests, is how to advise people who have gone through cancer treatment and have survived cancer treatment, how to eat and take on nutrition as in the form of wellness.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are good diets that have been shown to reduce the risk of cancer? That's one of the things you do,
Right.
which is a segue
Yes,
to coffee.
it is.
So let me tell you why we're doing this talk. So I have a personal interest in coffee because just as I recognize that physical activity provides me this sense of well-being, and being in nature provides me this sense of well-being, I have for a long time recognized that coffee provides me a sense of well-being, and I can also, outline things that it does. It, kickstarts my digestive system in the morning, so it gets things going. Encourages a good bowel movement. It gets my brain going.
Yep.
It makes me more active. I also know that I go to the gym, but I have to have the coffee first. So I get up and I read and I drink coffee, and then it just helps enhance all of that.
Mhm.
So I had that personal sense, and so I'm always in tune to when an article comes out in a medical journal, or more commonly in a newspaper where it references the medical journal on the health benefits. And every time I turn around, there's more of the health benefits.
Right.
So I was meeting with one of my patients, and I said, "Oh, you met with our dietitian last week. How did that go?" "Oh, it went really well. Gave me good ideas, but told me I had to stop drinking coffee." And I go, what is my dietitian doing telling patients? Like, we are evidence-based. And I just kind of went a little bit like, whoa. So then that prompted me to start collecting medical articles.
Sure.
On. So then I came to you, that I said, I don't know if you'd like to do this, but I've got this idea because there's just another article on the health benefits. Would you be willing to, I'm not telling you what to say, but let's do a dive into the evidence, because sometimes things get stuck as recommendations. Like, I remember as a kid, like, thinking that you have to wait an hour after you eat before you go swimming, or you are going to die. And like, if it was only 55 minutes, you're still going to die. Well, I don't know where we came up with you have to wait an hour, because now, I mean, swimmers are trying to get so many calories. You got Olympic swimmers that have food at the edge of the pool while they're training to eat. So sometimes, though, something kind of sticks and isn't based on evidence, or the evidence changes. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to have a conversation about what does medical science tell us about coffee.
And it must not have been me, because I am a coffee lover too. So that might have been a different dietitian that told your patients not to drink coffee. In fact, I can remember, Dr. Deming, you coming to me and saying at one point, "Barb, coffee comes from a plant. You can drink coffee when you have cancer." And I said, "Yes, Dr. Deming," because I think I was telling my patients the benefits of green tea too. And and you were like, "Don't forget coffee."
Don't forget coffee. I'm not opposed to green tea, but where do you think that, also growing up, coffee's going to stunt your growth? That was, I don't know if
I've
anybody,
not heard that one.
Nobody ever, it was going to stunt your growth. And the idea that coffee was bad. But I do remember even as a doctor, there was this thing, oh, it causes fibrocystic disease, makes your breast tender. Then maybe, and when I was in medical school, there was that coffee causes pancreas cancer. But then there was a more complete study that no, coffee doesn't cause cancer. So we're going to look at the medical evidence of what are the risks and benefits of drinking coffee. And you just kind of went all in on this and did.
I did some good research. I learned a lot about coffee, actually, and I have been an avid coffee
drinker. I love
drinker.
this. Yeah. Even the American Institute on Cancer Research has a poster on all of the health benefits of coffee and the number of different cancers that it reduces the risk for. But let's go back to your interest in coffee. When did you first become a coffee drinker, and when did you just start appreciating not just the taste, but maybe some positive effects on quality of life?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started drinking coffee, I think like a lot of people who have gone to college as a college student. But
to stay awake like at night, like when you're studying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. However, I would also take that old-fashioned no-dose. Remember that caffeine pill that would get you really zooped up to stay up at night? And then I realized it was way too strong. I couldn't then go to sleep at all. So I was like, there has to be an alternative. My parents were coffee drinkers, but I never tried it at home until I got to college. And then being a college student, I was too poor to afford anything to put in the coffee. So I drank it completely black back then, just black coffee. And same thing, noticed more alertness, but not so much that I was having too much caffeine. So that was kind of when I started drinking coffee. As far as, I've been a lifelong coffee drinker, just 2 cups a day, but I find that it is a great way to start my day for the same reason that you said. There's a little of that caffeine tends to help with mental alertness. For me, I am an IBS sufferer, so there's some gastrointestinal benefits to cancer or to coffee as well, as far as being that morning constitutional. A lot of times too, when I would see patients that were going through treatment in the cancer realm, they would say, coffee doesn't taste good to me, and so now I can't taste it. And then they would have digestive issues because they use coffee as kind of their laxative. So I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of people that use it for that reason as well. Also just some of the things that would take away from coffee as far as being a drink would be some people are sensitive to caffeine and they can have problems with their stomach. I'm one of those people that has trouble with too much caffeine, so I tend to not be able to drink every type of coffee, especially the strong.
Do you think it's the coffee or the caffeine?
That's a good question, because a lot of the coffee that are the stronger coffees are also the coffees that have higher caffeine content. So it's probably not necessarily the bean or the roast, but it might be just the caffeine content of it. I drink half calf. That's what I've always drank since probably in the last 30 years. Yeah. Just because of the benefit. Yeah.
And we'll talk a bit about the difference maybe between coffee and caffeine. I mean, most of the studies that I looked at, and we'll talk about yours, talk about coffee, drinking coffee with the caffeine in it. I didn't do a deeper dive into, benefits of taking caffeine pills or detriment of taking caffeine pills. I will say that when I take a group of people on mountain climbing or, where you're out in the wilderness, you maybe, can boil enough water that you get a little cup of coffee in the morning, but nobody sleeps really well. You're intense. So a caffeine tablet like midday to give you a little bit of a perk. So that mental alertness and keeping you from being sleepy is a really positive thing.
Right.
Some people don't know that caffeine is actually on the banned substance list for the Olympics, but the amount that you would have to have in your bloodstream, you could only get by ingesting tablets. You're never going to get the illegal amount of caffeine by drinking coffee. But it is, in the banned substance list.
Yeah.
Marijuana is not, because it's not a performance enhancing drug, but caffeine
How about
is
that?
a performance enhancing drug.
That's funny.
So let's do a little bit of a deeper dive. So as you prepared for this, how would you outline the health benefits of coffee?
So again, coffee comes from a bean, which is really technically a berry. So it comes from a plant. So in my field and what I do with talking to people about cancer, I always talk about the benefits of a plant-based or a plant-forward diet. So that's one very interesting way that coffee fits into that. Again, separating the coffee from the caffeine issue. So we know that the coffee beans have all types of phytochemicals, which are chemicals that come from plants that can be very helpful at the cellular level for reducing inflammation, working to fight off something called free radicals, which comes into play when we talk about cancer development. So that's the main benefit of coffee as far as a plant-based compound.
Yeah. As you say that, you describe, we call it a coffee bean, but it's not a bean. It's not a legume like a lentil or a chickpea or those. It is a berry. Well, everyone knows that you're supposed to eat berries, and the berries are good for you. Nobody's surprised when you probably don't tell many people, don't eat blueberries.
I never tell people that.
No.
Yeah.
So we encourage berries, and sometimes people pay a lot of money for all of the latest berry that's in fashion, whether it's the
goji berry,
acai, or what's the one that's ACQ?
Acai berry.
Yes. Yeah. And some people, because of the health benefits,
right?
But this is a berry,
and
so it shouldn't be surprising that it comes with health benefits that are similar, if not even exceed the health benefits of the other berries. But this one, you roast it.
Roasted to different degrees, and that kind of affects the flavor of it. Interestingly enough, the process by which you decaffeinate coffee, there's like 4 major ways that you can decaffeinate coffee with processing with water. The benefits aren't lost with decaf. So a lot of people will ask me, well, I just drink decaf. Is that a good thing? Can I still get the health benefits from it? And you can. So like I said, some people prefer without the caffeine. So that's a benefit as well, that you can still get that from decaf coffee. There has been lots of research that shows that all-cause mortality is reduced with the increased amount of coffee, up to about 4 cups a day, which that includes things like cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's disease, dementia. So coffee has really been studied a lot.
Non-medical lingo, drinking coffee results in you living longer.
Right.
So by reduction of all-cause mortality, it means that you actually live longer. And there's one study that it was the more you drank, the longer you lived. There was no it only goes up to moderate. The study was the more you drank throughout your life, the longer you lived.
Right. Yeah. And as you go up that amount of coffee that you drink and the caffeine level rises, like we all know people who can drink coffee at night and go right to sleep, right? And it doesn't affect them at all. But some people will get a rapid heart rate or blood pressure issues. Like I said, the gastrointestinal issues. So it's always trying to find what is that good level for you that your body can tolerate.
Yeah. And definitely, one of the benefits that most people perceive is this. I love a good coffee buzz in the morning and get me going and mentally active, but I wouldn't drink coffee at night unless, I'm driving all night to go somewhere. But yeah. So the fact that it keeps you awake is one of the positive things if you drink it in the morning, and should alert you to the fact that it's not a good idea to drink coffee too late, because it can definitely interfere with sleep.
Definitely, for sure. Insomnia is an issue for a lot of people that have that issue. We tell people to stop drinking coffee at about 2:00 in the afternoon, just so that caffeine can get out of your system and then not interrupt your sleep pattern.
And Barb, you mentioned some of the properties that the individual chemicals, or let's say the individual nutrients that are in the coffee bean can help protect cells from damage, reduce inflammation, and help promote healing. And as a result, when we're talking about cancer, the research shows that it actually reduces the risk of developing certain types of cancer.
Right.
What are those types of cancer?
So liver cancer and endometrial are the two that the AICR, and that stands for the American Institute of Cancer Research, they show that there's strong probable evidence that drinking coffee helps to lower or has a chemoprotective effect on developing both endometrial and liver cancer. And chemoprotective tends to be that drinking that before being diagnosed with cancer tends to help prevent cancer. Whereas chemotherapeutic, there aren't a bunch of studies about chemotherapeutic,
Right,
which means
about
after you have
after you've been-
cancer
yeah.
and diagnosed with cancer, if that then will help you to either not have another cancer form or to prevent you from recurrence from the same cancer.
Yeah. And the other cancers where there's still evidence, but it's not as strong
Yes.
as liver and endometrium, are all sorts, including head and neck cancer, oral cavity, pharynx, larynx, skin cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. So some of the big ones, there's actually sufficient evidence that it actually reduces those types of cancer.
Right.
So several cancers where it reduces the risk of cancer, and there are no studies that show that drinking coffee increases the risk of any type of cancer. As I said, back in the 1970s when I was in medical school, there was a little bit of a scare about could it cause pancreas cancer, but that was totally disproven. So prevents many different types of cancers, or I should say reduces the risk. Nothing totally prevents cancer, but reduces the risk of developing cancer in many different types of cancers, and there's no cancers that it increases the risk for. What are some other health benefits besides reducing the risk of cancer?
So one of the things that I found when I was preparing for this presentation is besides helping prevent cancer at the cellular level, they also think that some of the chemoprotective properties of cancer might be related to when we actually drink the coffee and it gets to what we call our gut. That it might actually help the microbiome, which have you guys, everybody heard the word microbiome yet? Basically, the microbiome is kind of the beneficial bacteria that lines our digestive system, especially in the colon. And they think that there might be some positive effects that coffee actually has on that bacteria. And then those bacteria go to work helping prevent disease, whether that be cancer or any type of inflammatory
And would you refer
disease.
that effect as probiotic?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it actually helps feed the bacteria, provide the milieu that makes it rich for bacteria to grow. Fiber does that as well.
Fiber does
correct?
that as well. Yep. And coffee, we don't necessarily consider a true probiotic, but it does something to that
Something to help.
microbiome that they think has positive effects on prevention of all these diseases we talked about.
And the other diseases besides cancer that it helps reduce the risk for?
Yep. All the inflammatory diseases. So things like Parkinson's disease, arthritis, perhaps, heart disease, dementia, like I said, all those tend to be inflammatory. Diabetes, yeah.
And actually also there's studies that show that it reduces the risk of heart attacks and strokes, heart failure. And I was surprised that there's even studies that show that it reduces the risk of cardiac arrhythmias, because I was in the back of my mind thinking, oh, that might be one of the potential negatives of too much caffeine is because sometimes you feel your heartbeat, palpitations, but actually are studies showing that it can actually reduce the risk of arrhythmias and strokes. And as you said, the big picture is regardless of the disease, it reduces the risk of premature death.
Right.
The more you drink, the longer you live.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
What are some of the negative effects of coffee and or caffeine?
Again, I would say probably like it can increase your heart rate if you have too much. I remember my days of no dose. There were times where I felt like my throat was palpitating as well, so it's definitely a stimulant. So too much of that could be that, just that effect more than anything. Well, drinking too much coffee also increases your urination. So that's one thing that can definitely have an effect on that. The softening of the bowels as well. Sometimes people will say that, I've talked with people who, especially people who have gone through maybe some GI surgeries, that we kind of pull back on some of the coffee and the warm fluids and the caffeine as far as it can be a bowel stimulant
Makes
as well.
the stools looser.
Looser. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Depending how much you drink.
Yep.
Some of the other negative effects, insomnia, which is kind of just the side effect of caffeine, but if you drink it too late in the day, then it becomes a negative side effect. If you drink it early in the day, it's a positive side effect. Along with that inability to sleep, there have been some studies that suggest that it could increase anxiety in some people. Mm-hmm. The other issue is pregnant women. Too much caffeine can have an adverse effect on development of the child. And so they recommend limiting caffeine to less than 200 milligrams per day during pregnancy. So there's also a study that shows that it could potentially raise the LDL cholesterol. I had not been aware of that until I did this, but there's at least one study looking at LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and that perhaps it could increase the risk of or increase the LDL level. Did you see anything?
I
about
hadn't
that?
seen anything about that. That is interesting. As far as dietary advice that I would give people, I probably wouldn't pick up on that more than just other dietary factors. Yep.
Tell us a bit about coffee from a nutrition or food point of view. Yeah. And does it matter how one prepares the coffee? Also, from a health benefit point of view, maybe the difference between drinking black coffee and drinking coffee with creamer, artificial flavors, butter
coffee,
olive oil.
So the AICR that put out this handout that is available. So if people who are online, you can go to the AICR.org and type in coffee and cancer, and you'll come up with this nice infographic that we're using here for our presentation today. But they have a campaign that talks about rethink your drink, because, and it's one of the things that I always cover when I talk about nutrition to cancer survivors, is that because of the commercial drink industry right now, we get a lot more calories from drinks than we ever have before. So when you look at this particular handout, talks about better coffee choices. So like a regular black coffee has very few calories, 2 calories, 2.4, I think is what I found in my research for like a 10-ounce cup of coffee. If you go up to the butter pecan swirl frozen coffee with cream, it's 520 calories, 17 grams of fat, and 84 grams of sugar, which is unbelievable. So what we always tell people is that if you're looking for the nutrition benefits of coffee, it's definitely primarily in the coffee itself. It's not what you put in there. So watch the milk, the flavor additives, all those things that you put in there that can increase your coffee, the calorie count, and some of the detrimental things about coffee as far as just being a high calorie drink. So that's as far as that goes. Some of the risks for coffee that I will have had people come and ask me about is there's a lot of concern with microplastics that are in everything, that they're in the air. I've read they were in the sheets that we sleep on at night. I mean, they're really pretty much
the carpets and the
everywhere,
sofas and
Right. But now when you're talking about coffee and making coffee and some of the ways we make coffee now, we run that hot water through a plastic cup or into a plastic pot. And what does that do to it? So what I found as far as the data that goes on that, the best way to cook that would be in a way that doesn't use plastic. So things like French press is really good, where you just put the coffee in and push it down, and there's no plastic involved. George was telling that we have, besides a glass coffee press, you can also get them in stainless steel, and that would be safe as well. There's the pour over version as well, where it's just a carafe and you put the coffee grounds in there and you just pour it over and it goes into the coffee carafe without dealing with any plastic. One of the things I always say that I like show and tell. So one of the things I brought, anybody remember this? The old percolated coffee pot. This is actually an antique that I picked up at a thrift store. But the coffee comes in, goes over the grounds, goes down. There's only stainless steel and glass, and you can also get stainless
steel. For those
steel.
who don't know, so you put the coffee grounds.
Oh, and this is very fragile. So into
put the coffee grounds in there.
Uh-huh.
Put that lid back on, and there's holes in the bottom.
Right.
But the holes are small enough that the coffee grounds don't go through.
Right.
Then you put it on the stove.
Put it on the stove.
You put the water in, so the water goes in the bottom. Yep. So before you start, there's clear water here, and the grounds are up above.
Right.
And then as the water heats up, it goes up
into this
spigot,
little,
and you see it there, and it makes a nice noise as the bubble hits there.
Yes.
And then the water comes down onto the grounds, and then the coffee goes back down. So as you make it, you end up then the coffee getting stronger and stronger as it
does.
Circulates.
As it circulates. So if you like it light, you don't let it boil for very long. If you like it dark, you let it boil longer. It's really nice to hear the coffee, the old-fashioned coffee being made. It smells really good when it's percolating. And it's very easy. The only problem with that is we're so used to instant. Put it in the Keurig or the coffee pot, pull it down, there's your cup of coffee. So this definitely takes a while. Now, some of the new percolators, you can plug that into a timer and plug the timer in, and then your coffee, you can start with a timer and it's ready to go when you wake up in the morning. So that's an option too.
And you brought this up because this is all glass, a little bit of metal, but no plastic.
No plastic.
So for those trying to eliminate plastics in their life, this would be a plastic-free way of making coffee.
Plastic-free way of making coffee, yes. So, but then, I always tell people that life isn't always black and white. Might be the days that you work that you need quick coffee. You use the instant coffee Keurig type machines. And then on days where you don't have to work, the weekends, take your time, really enjoy the whole experience of coffee. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I use a drip machine, but it has to be the kind where you can pull it out before
and stop
it's full. Yeah, so it automatically stops because I can't wait till it fills up. And the first half cup, I mean, that's the best.
It is.
Like
I would agree.
Strong.
Yeah.
So that's the way I do it. Yeah. It's just
push the button
and within
and let it go.
A while short while you've got coffee.
Yep. So so that's one thing that I brought. I also, and I have a recipe here for an iced pumpkin spice latte smoothie, and this is really nice. It's you can get all these individual blenders now. This one I got at TJ Maxx for like $20, and it's very easy to make a coffee drink in here. Gen Z coffee drinkers tend to like iced coffee. That's their thing. You have to be really careful with the iced coffees because you can get into a lot of calories by what you add in there. Cold brew coffee also is one of the highest caffeine count of all the coffees.
I was
Did
just
you see that?
seeing that. I had no idea. So it's if you do 1 cup of coffee, so 8 ounces, decaf isn't totally caffeine free. Right. Very, very small amount of coffee in decaf. Instant coffee would have maybe 70 milligrams of caffeine in a cup. Brewed coffee, up to 100 milligrams in a brewed cup of coffee. But the cold brew, 230 milligrams
Right. And they think that just has to do with the length of time that the coffee sits and kind of steeps and gets stronger. And so, yeah, cold brew, that was a big surprise to me when I did research for this presentation, that it tends to be the highest in caffeine as well.
And there are other blends of coffee where you put other things in. So, for example, back during, I think it was the Depression, it might even been before then, starting to put like chicory and other grains that get mixed in with the grounds as you make it. And that's become kind of a classic part of the lore of New Orleans, where you get the coffee. Is it with the chicory in the
Yes.
coffee? Yeah, which adds a very different flavor. But originally, it wasn't done to improve the flavor. It was done as sort of a way of making your coffee last longer by using a filler.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that. Yeah.
But you also were going to talk to us about a different sort of filler.
Yeah. So now there's a lot of different types of coffees that are promoted out there. Has anybody heard of mushroom coffee before? So it's kind of one of the new things. It's more of a functional coffee, they call it. So this is actually coffee. The main ingredient is coffee. And then what they add to that would be some coconut milk powder, some MCT oil powder. So MCT is medium chain triglyceride. It tends to be one of the healthier types of fat. And then there's a 6-in-1 mushroom blend. So the mushrooms that are in here are lion's mane, reishi, turkey tail, chaga, and maitake.
Okay.
So those are ground, mixed into the coffee. And again, the term for a mushroom coffee would be an adaptogen, which is a new word as well. That means that something has been added to the coffee to try to improve or add some health benefits to it. So this is actually mine. I purchased this at the Des Moines Farmers Market, $27. So it's not cheap, but I really wanted to try it just to see what it tasted like. I am a mushroom lover. I talk about the benefits of mushrooms overall, as far as just a healthy plant-based thing for people that really enjoy mushrooms. Mushrooms are one of those things too, either you really like or you don't. There's no in between. But it tastes really good. Mushrooms have a flavor called umami, which is kind of more of a meat-rich, earthy taste to it. So it's a surprisingly yummy additive to me into coffee. I wasn't sure if I would like it or not. Now there is a little bit of that coconut milk, dried coconut milk powder. So it's more creamy. So that also helps a little bit, but I thought it was really good.
Do you think is it being touted as a health benefit? Because some of those mushrooms, for example, turkey tail mushroom is used. There are studies that would claim that it may have benefits in terms of cancer treatment to either prevent cancer or to perhaps be part of a cancer treatment. In some Asian, you hear that. So some of the mushrooms that you mentioned, like they're not using the traditional
button mushrooms
or morel mushrooms are the ones that are noted for their flavor. They're using ones that kind of are touted as having health benefits.
Yes. So that, again, how much you're going to get in a cup of coffee or two, versus like all the research that I read was that's great if you want to get some, but if you really want to get the benefits of mushroom, cook them up and eat them with your eggs and bacon, or your eggs and toast. Rather than just put them in your coffee. But for some people, that's something that's interesting and a little different.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else do you have before we open it up to questions?
Yeah. Because we did talk about that, and I've got my notes here. I always remind people that besides coffee, green tea is also very, it's very prevalent in the Asian cultures, especially. We don't drink it as much here. We tend to drink more black tea, but green tea is growing.
And tell us, what is the difference between green tea and black tea? It's obviously when you get a cup of green tea, it looks like
green. Yeah.
I was going to say brown, but it does
yellow. Yeah.
Okay. So what is it?
It's the tea leaf.
Is it like a herbal where you just are using the raw tea?
Yes. So basically, whether it's black or if it's green, it's going to be the tea itself crushed. The difference is the type of plant,
Oh,
and
okay.
it comes from different plants.
Okay.
Yep.
So no form of tea is roasted. It's
No.
just
It's usually dried and then steeped with hot water.
okay.
Yep. Yep. So it's
So
the
it's the
dried
t-
tea leaves.
And it's the leaves. And
Yes.
so black tea is made from leaves the leaves are actually black colored.
That's a good question. I don't know that
Okay.
technically, but it's just two different kind of plants.
Okay.
Yeah. So matcha tea is a type of green tea that you probably have heard a little bit more about that matcha, because you hear a lot of matcha, kind of like you hear mushrooms. And that is a finely ground tea powder of leaves of the tea plant that are actually grown in the shade. So that's very specific. Has anybody tasted matcha before? It's a very, again, earthy taste to it. It's an acquired taste, just like a lot of people will say green tea is an acquired taste. But there's lots of benefits of tea as well. Tea tends to be a little bit lower in caffeine than coffee is. But again, lots of studies on tea, especially in Asian cultures, and the chemo preventative effect of tea as well.
And what are considered what benefits do green tea have that black tea doesn't?
So that there's probably been more studies with green tea. I always tell people, drink the tea you like, because some people just don't like the taste of green tea. It's a little bitter. Some people were more used to black tea here. There's still good research that shows that tea in general, just like coffee, because they come from plants, have good health benefits. Yep. So I just wanted to give tea its plug as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Since we were talking about other forms of coffee.
Well, let's open it up to questions.
Sure.
So we have a live studio audience here. They get first questions. But if you're watching us live streaming, you can ask questions as well. Just put your question into the comments section of the software that you're using. But we'll start with our live studio audience. Angelina, you get first question.
Well, I'm curious on the mushroom coffee.
Yeah.
What kind of apparatus would you put that in?
Yeah. So I actually just went and put it through my drip coffee machine, just with no pot in there, just hot water. You could just put boiling water in there, or, warm water, really warm water. And it just is a powder that gets diluted and dissolves, and you just mix it up that way.
Instant?
It's instant.
So you don't.
Yeah, it's not grounds.
Okay, it's not grounds. So
Yep.
it's an
So you
instant.
put it in the cup, and then you can use the hot water from the.
Yeah, just the hot water. So you just make it up that way. Yep, it's very easy to make. And this, because of the milk powder, the coconut milk powder, there's 15 calories per cup to make this. So it's a little bit higher than regular black coffee, because there are some additives in it, including the mushrooms. So yeah.
So they go out of the way to tell you the 6 different types of mushrooms. Does it tell you what type of coffee bean?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't say anything about what type of coffee
It's a
bean.
Arabica.
Yeah, Arabica, or the other
some-
one is Robusta.
Yeah.
And Robusta is kind of where instant coffee comes from. Yeah.
Okay.
So my guess is it's Robusta.
Well, another thing. Well, I have one of those machines we use the coffee pods,
Yes.
but noticing a lot of additives in those coffee pods that you have to kind of be noticing. So I'm finding myself reading how much, because I'm a diabetic.
Okay.
And so some of it already has some sugary stuff in there.
Yeah, that's a good
So there are actually some that say sugar free.
point. Okay.
I've noticed, but you have to really look for those.
So the ones that I have at home that I run through my Keurig, I have one that's actually metal that you put a little coffee filter in. Has anybody seen those? You can get those different places online. So it's an actual little empty pod, and then you put your own coffee in. So that way you know exactly what's in there. You can roast your bean, or not roast the beans, but grind your beans fresh and put those right in there. So that's
and
another
as you
option.
mentioned, you're not heating up plastic.
You're not heating up plastic.
So you
Yep.
use your own little
Metal filler cup.
Keurig.
Mhm. Yep.
Gary.
We talk a lot about caffeine and coffee. Is there any particular other elements that are taken within the body that might be nutritious or anything like that we know about?
Yeah. Sometimes there are some things, again, I pointed out the things that have like polyphenols are in there, which are, again, these are chemicals that come actually in the bean themselves, and we get the benefits from that. They also, the research that I did talked about there being trace amounts of vitamins also in those beans, not a large amount, nothing that's going to add to your daily requirement or anything like that. They also mention metals. They just say metals. So I'm not sure.
But metals as in favorable?
Yes.
Yeah.
They mentioned that
Trace.
as trace amounts of
They say metals. I wonder how metals differ from minerals.
minerals. That's what I would think.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know why
wonder
they said metals. And I'm like, I can't see actual metals. But yeah, so there are some other benefits of that coffee bean besides like those chemical things in the bean. There's a little bit.
It doesn't sound like very much, though, and
No.
you'd have to drink a lot to be able to get
Yes, you would.
those.
Doesn't mean that the magnet's going to get you.
No, I don't think you have to worry about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So as Barb pointed out, the calories with black coffee is minuscule. So you're not going to sustain life drinking coffee because you don't really get, other than the vitamins and trace minerals and everything, you don't get something that provides your body energy in the terms of carbohydrates, proteins, or fats.
No fat, no protein, no carbohydrate at all in coffee. It's just the chemoprotective chemicals from the bean themselves. Yeah.
George.
Yeah, I had a technical question on
Yeah.
coffee. I had a friend of mine one time that told me that he talked about the half-life of caffeine or coffee. And what he meant, I think, was that if you drink coffee and you want to sleep at night, you should not drink any 12 hours before you go to sleep because the caffeine will still be active. It'll still have that wokeness effect. Have you ever heard of that?
I've never heard of that before. But with that being said, like a lot of times for people that know that caffeine can interrupt their sleep cycle, we will tell people to have their coffee in the morning and kind of cut it off somewhere around 2:00 in the afternoon. That's kind of the consensus around the cancer center too. That's when we stop if we're drinking it.
Yeah. From a pharmacology point of view, any thing you put in your body has an amount of time before it starts being eliminated, and depends if it is eliminated through the liver or through the kidneys. And so this how long it remains in your body, yes, is a certain time. I don't know exactly how long, but it makes sense. The recommendations, if you don't want coffee to interfere with your sleep, that you stop drinking at least 8 hours before you plan on going to sleep. Because if you don't, there is some caffeine. Now, we probably all know people who drink coffee right before they go to bed, and they say it doesn't interfere with their sleep. But I think most people, one of the benefits is it does give you a bit of a buzz and makes you more alert. And so drinking, I usually tell my patients, but I don't really pin them down on exactly what time do you go to bed. But if you don't have any afternoon, you're likely to be quite safe that it's not going to interrupt your sleep.
What about coffee in the urinary tract? Somebody that has urinary maladies, cancer related even, is coffee going to kick that into hyperdrive?
So let me tell you, let me ask you, you go first.
I was looking at you, Dr. Deming. I'm
Okay,
like, I have
that's
not
what-
heard that as far as that being an irritant.
Well, but you also mentioned, like urination, increasing urination. And
Sure.
so one of the studies that I looked at kind of debunk that idea that coffee makes you pee, that it's really drinking however many cups of whatever you're going to drink. If you drink 3 cups of water, you're going to have to urinate. And that the idea that coffee is a diuretic, meaning that the coffee or the caffeine itself creates more urine, is not true.
Oh.
And there have been studies where athletes have used only coffee for rehydration, and you can rehydrate just fine with coffee. So those athletes who want to get the fitness benefits of the coffee, you can rehydrate with coffee. And so it doesn't dehydrate you to drink coffee. You have to urinate when you drink a lot of coffee because 99.9999% of what you're drinking is water.
Also wanted to mention one of our viewers, Michelin is watching on Facebook, says great interview. So you got somebody out there that's enjoying it. The last question I had was regarding a tolerance to coffee. I think of the drug effect of coffee. Any drug you can develop a tolerance to, including alcohol and that type of thing. Is that a concern with coffee? And if you're drinking it for its effectiveness, you risk gaining a tolerance issue.
We look at each other for this one.
Well, I would say the reducing the risk of cancer, that's based on all of the different chemical, probably not the caffeine, but all of the other stuff. So I don't think your body develops a tolerance to the health benefits of all of those. Do we develop a tolerance to the caffeine so that it doesn't give you as much of a buzz after you've been used to drinking it for, 30 years as when you're first starting? It's interesting. I'm not sure that that's true, but I don't know. I mean, if I drink 4 cups of coffee in the morning as I'm doing my reading, and I mean, I still feel that sense of alertness. So, but it's a good question. I'm not aware that you become tolerant of the effects of caffeine to the point that you don't feel it.
I think that's a good answer.
Yes, I'm wondering if I heard you correctly. You said coffee is not a bladder irritant, or would caffeine be a bladder irritant?
I didn't answer the question properly, so thanks for asking the question. I jumped to a question that he didn't really ask, is like, does it make you pee a lot? And so that's the question I answered. But does coffee, as you urinate, does coffee irritate the bladder? None of in the literature search I did, which included positive and negative things, did not mention irritating the bladder.
I didn't see that as well.
You hear more that drinking coffee makes you urinate, that it's a diuretic, but it's really just drinking that much water will also make you have to urinate.
Because my urologist said that, and I don't know where it came from.
So I will do a specific search about, does it irritate the lining of the bladder? But in the general search, literature search of negative consequences of drinking coffee, that didn't come up. But
So I love mushroom, but I looked it up and it says not recommended for people who are taking blood thinners, have blood pressure, or diabetic drugs. So it's kind of discouraged. You should avoid mushroom
or coffee.
Mushroom coffee. Yeah.
Yep. And that, again, probably not very much in there. This is also one brand. So they're probably not regulated as far as like how much one brand would have versus another. The other thing is that when you're powdering something, dehydrating and powdering it, there might be more concentrates in there than normal, because typically we wouldn't tell people who have heart disease or diabetes not to eat mushrooms. So it might have something to do with that effect, probably more than like it not being regulated. These are not well regulated as far as like there's no standardized amount that you have to put in one brand versus another. And then probably the dehydrating, concentrating. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. A couple of things to say. Number one, you bought that at a farmer's market.
I did.
Doesn't look like a farmer made that.
No,
Does it say where it was, what country it's from?
It says it's distributed by Adara Wellness, and there's an expiration date on it, but no, it doesn't say anywhere
where it comes from.
Mm-mm.
So yeah,
but it does say energy, focus, and immunity on the front.
So I'm in health, we're always suspect of things that come in plastic bags. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's it could end up that's might fall into the category of highly processed foods. So I think maybe your quick literature or your Google search
Yeah.
was just, you know, beware what you're buying. You know, do you
Right.
really know what it is and where it comes from? The other thing I would say, just in terms of doing a Google search, I just want to throw out. So I found a new website. It was I learned about it at a conference, and it's available for anyone, and it's free, and it's just an AI of a large language model of medical literature, and it's called Open Evidence. Just one word, openevidence.com. You go to that and you can sign up, and it's free, but it will give you a beautiful summary of your question and the medical literature and the references. So there's nothing wrong with just going to Google, but you have to look at where is this coming from, because there's a difference between opinions, like if you eat something an hour before you swim, you will drown. That's an opinion. There's a difference between opinions and medical evidence. And this website will give you the medical evidence. Now, sometimes there's medical evidence that disagree with each other, but it's still based on evidence, not just based on somebody's opinion that drinking coffee irritates your bladder. Now, we'll do a very specific medical literature search to see, is there really evidence that it irritates your bladder, or is that just kind of somebody's opinion? Because
And Angelina, to your question too, if you really wanted to drink mushroom coffee, it might be good just to put the mushrooms at the bottom of the cup and pour the coffee on top of it, and then you're still going to get some of that leaching out, right? Just like, as we saute mushrooms and things like that, that would be a totally non-processed form of mushroom coffee, right? Yeah.
But I like your idea, just putting them in the omelet.
Put them in the omelet.
Yeah. Well, Barb, this has been great. Thank you for taking up the challenge of let's do a literature search and see what the science tells us about the nutritional benefits and the health benefits and risks of coffee. So thank you.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
If you are watching this evening and know somebody that would benefit by watching it, it's going to be available on demand beginning tomorrow at the Above and Beyond Cancer YouTube channel and the Mercy Cancer Center website. I hope you'll join us again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.